Savvy Cat Anna, everybody. How are you, Anna?
Good morning, Carl. Rainy morning. I don't know how it is, but I think it's pretty raining on that end. No?
Well, it has been for sure. I had a really nice breezy walk with the dogs this morning. I'm looking out on the window. It's looking quite sunny, actually. It looks like it's clearing up for a moment, but very changeable at the moment. And we have had a lot of rain, you're right. And 18.4 degrees, the weather probe is telling me from the back passage at the moment. So, there has been a lot of rain. Where in the country are you at the moment, if you don't mind me
I'm in
asking?
Porto. I was supposed to go to Caldas yesterday, but it was such bad weather that we kind of gave up. And then we realized that it was going to be even worse on Sunday. So we figured, better not be making a 2.5 hour car trip in the middle of a storm.
So stay in the big city. How's Porto been coping with the weather?
Well, the park's closed. There was a bunch of trees falling over and lots of rain, lots of wind. But I don't think we've been having any floods yet. I've
Right.
seen a video of Caldas, the main square, completely flooded. So I was thinking things were a lot worse there.
Crazy.
But yeah, inside home, it's great.
Yes, you're saying nice. I think that's the Portuguese approach, isn't it? Stormy outside. We're not going anywhere. Let's stay indoors. And of course, there was a public holiday. So I imagine for All Saints, a lot of people stayed warm and dry, as it sounds like you've done.
Yep.
Yeah. So how are things going at Savvy Cat Realty? You're, of course, the supremo of said company. What's going on? And we've got a few news headlines to look at, haven't we? From your sector.
Well, yes, it's pretty much what I was predicting already. So the government is already starting to question their initial decision about the NHR. So let's see how that goes.
What have you heard? Tell me what you've heard on that, because some people are hoping that the government are going to say, yeah, okay, it was a bit hasty. It is going to go. It was always going to go, but maybe we'll give people a little bit of an extension. What have you heard?
I'm hoping that's going to happen, but what I've heard was basically that they were considering a provisional program to kind of make the transition, but I don't know what that program is going to be. And honestly, the backtrack on our government on creating programs is not the best. So, or at least creating them in due time.
Yes, right. Yeah, a lot of talk, a lot of you might say a lot of heat, but not much light, perhaps. But and they get there in the end, but no one knows where the end is.
Pretty much.
Right. Okay. So that's the NHR. What else? What other news do you have for us? An insight from your industry?
So apparently, Portugal was named the third best country for digital nomads.
Yes, that's been doing
nice.
the rounds. Yeah. And would you agree with that? And is that part of your business as well? I know you help people find homes, of course, and rentals. Are some of them digital nomads?
Yes, some of them are. We have a lot of clients that come from different countries and work online. So we technically work with a lot of digital nomads. I think the term digital nomads, it gives a lot of thought to people that are constantly moving around. But I would say that most of my clients, they come here to stay long term. They are not looking to jump again in a year or in 6 months or so.
Yes.
So I would say that's one of the main differences. And I would say definitely that Portugal, it's a very attractive place for digital nomads because of the main reasons that Portugal is attractive in the first place. That is safety, quality of life, food, healthcare, and the prices in comparison to other locations in Europe are still decent.
Yes.
Although I wouldn't say that about this one. But the internet service is also quite good and stable in general, so you can get fiber internet in most locations. So overall, I would say yes, Portugal can be a very good location for people that are digital nomads and work digitally on another country and want to be in Portugal.
Yeah, and just generally, you've given us the reasons, the sizzle of the steak that is Portugal there, and the headlines or the benefits, the great benefits of being in this country. Your view then on recent news, it's been quite the time, hasn't it, with where public confidence or global confidence in Portugal might have been knocked a little bit. And we'll talk more specifically with Bobby about, his residency through investment alive and well in Portugal. He'll address that when he joins us at 9:30. We do have to remember, don't we, with all of these headlines that are often distilled into a dramatic soundbite, that Portugal is still a cracking place to come. And when I say a cracking place, a British turn of phrase meaning a brilliant place to come and live. It's all relative, isn't it? And I don't think that's changed. Some of these T's and C's, if you like, have changed, and some of the financial equation is in question. People need to think twice about that. But that's what 20%. The other 80% of what's brilliant about Portugal remains brilliant.
Yes, that hasn't changed, but I think that the tax situation shouldn't be downplayed, and people do really need to look at it very seriously and understand if they can support the regular tax of Portugal before they come.
Yeah.
And if they do, then great. It can be a great choice to come to Portugal. But as you know, the Portugal's taxes are not exactly light.
No, they're not. There's a whole new world of pain and understanding to be grasped, I think, when you move to Portugal. It's no truer than in taxation, this idea that check your assumptions. Learn how tax works in this country. It's very different, certainly, to my experience in the UK. And there are ways. If you do tax like a Portuguese person, it is almost like learning the language, isn't it? You're learning Portuguese as a language, and you're learning the nuances and approach of the Portuguese to tax as well. So you do need to get yourself a really good accountant and somebody to help you with that, and look at the ways to make your tax most efficient. So I had to pull somebody up on the Expats Portugal webinar last night who said, so if I want to avoid tax, I said, no, we don't talk about tax avoidance. And I think some of the other speakers on the panel said, we're talking about efficiency and minimization here. That's a much better way of putting it. There are ways of doing that aren't immediately obvious in Portugal. You've got to, certainly like starting a company, there are better and worse ways of having a company here in Portugal. And you can't do it alone. You really cannot do it as a foreigner, can you, Anna? You do have to get professional help with this.
Even as a local, starting a company is not easy, and it's going to cost you a lot less if you get a good accountant and a good lawyer and a good consultant, and you avoid the initial mistakes that can cost you a lot of money. And trust me, I've made a lot of those.
You and me both, Anna. And that's what we're saying here, isn't it? Others needn't go through that pain because there is a way through. It just isn't obvious. And that's how it is, isn't it, when you move to a new country? But then not only for us moving to new countries,
yes, and from a business perspective, Portugal can still be extremely attractive.
Well said.
The downside of low Portuguese wages, it's a very low downside for Portuguese people, but it's a very positive side for people that are looking to start international branches in Portugal or factories and so on, due to the high skill, low cost, relatively low cost labor. So that's definitely an attractive point of Portugal. And Portugal may be one of the highest rated when it comes to that kind of thing, opening a new branch of a big company in Europe. Portugal is a very, very strong contendant.
Yeah, well said. Excellent stuff. Okay, let's go back to a few of the comments before we look specifically at some of these news items that pertain to your industry. House prices up 48% in 4 years. We'll come back to that in just a minute, because I think a lot of these headlines don't help the situation at the moment. And with you here and with Bobby here, we can scratch beneath the surface of some of these alarmist headlines. I think we should talk about it for sure, but so we can get the expert help of Anna and Bobby this morning. People are admiring T Duck's woodwork. The watch clock was made for me by Mrs. Duck's dad. Not being here at the time I showed that, Anna, that'll be quite confusing for you. But there it is, bottom left hand. Isn't that a beautiful bit of woodwork there, with like a huge watch made out of wood there? And I think that's being admired. What was that? Oh, hold on a minute. That's nice woodwork, says Antonio F. There. Further comments to refer to then. I was asking Sarah about Alcobaça. Was that their first visit? It was my and Dan's first time. Bob and Viv have been before. Very rainy, so we stayed inside. Lots of pics and video of Bob and his amazing singing voice. Was Bob singing in the in the cathedral there? A monastery, sorry, not cathedral. It is very cathedral-esque. Do you like the Alcobaça monastery, Anna?
Yes, our last team meetup was in Alcobaça, and we did go to the monastery. So yeah, it's a beautiful monument, and it kind of, every time I go to those kinds of monuments, it just makes things in perspective on the wealth distribution in medieval times, like the amount of labor and cost to build something like that. It's completely unthinkable nowadays. I mean, even the architecture has been simplified, and the arts no longer as artistic, and you no longer integrate like sculpture and painting into architecture like back then.
Yeah. I imagine the minimum wage was pretty tiny in those days as well. There was an entirely different social order. Yes, an entirely different social order that made those things possible there. And yes, so we want to see some video of Bob singing in the monastery there before getting thrown out by security, perhaps. You should see, talking of the T-Dux Wood here, you should see the collection of wood, car, and train models he has made. How wonderful. And Michael, who's here for the Discovery Weekend. Shame you're not in this area this weekend. Anna, you could have joined us at the Discovery Weekend here in San Martino de Porto. Michael's here for that. Michael and Catherine, I'm looking forward to seeing you later on. Bon dia todos de tempestuosos. San Martino de Porto. Yes, I'm sure.
Yeah, do be careful because there's a storm announced, and apparently Sunday is the worst day, and Saturday is still going to be quite bad. But Sunday there are announced winds up to 100 kilometers.
Really? Okay, so maybe I won't be swimming in the... Oh, yeah, coastal event as a red warning. You're absolutely right. I am, on the rare occasion I check the weather, we are seeing a red warning there. Seem to be so much of those. I mean, these things end up getting normalized, don't they? These extreme weather events. There are so many of them. So, yes.
It's actually not that common here. I think
not?
Maybe we have them like twice, maybe 3 times a year, if so.
Okay, so this is a high point of that kind of activity. Do you recommend we don't go in the water then, Anna?
Definitely don't go in the water, but do be careful because a lot of trees are falling and so on, and that's basically the reason I decided not to go to the center this week, because there's pretty strong weather conditions.
Okay, all right. Well, that might be the final nail in the coffin of my plans to go swimming this weekend. The advice from Savvy Cat Anna. She can advise you, and her team can advise you on moving here to Portugal and finding property for you. Let's see what's going on in the chat as well. Oh, Mrs. M's had a go at the Faro caption competition, which is this picture here from the resident. And yeah, this is the Faro Bridge. It should be completed by the end of 24. There is a little bit of work to do, and she says they have taken that too far. Okay, thank you for that, Mrs. M. A cup of coffee would be nice as well, if you don't mind. I also showed the heists of chestnuts. Are you partial to a roasted chestnut at this time of year? Do you like that tradition?
We ate pork with chestnuts, roasted pork with chestnuts, just on the holiday. So
fantastic!
And one of our family traditions for Christmas is it's a cake, but it's kind of like a roll that we make it into the shape of a log, so like the Christmas log, and we made it. We make it out of chestnut paste.
It's the season for sure, isn't it? I don't think. I mean, going back to your weather commentary and advice, it's not going to be a San Martino or a Verão de San Martino this year, is it? I don't think we're going to have a late summer. So GNR always on the lookout for thieves of agricultural produce, mostly cork, olives, and chestnuts. Looking at the chestnut and olive heist that I featured earlier on. 34 of the Portuguese dams. This is the upside, isn't it, of all this rain? 34 of the Portuguese dams are at 80% or more of water capacity. Despite that, some dams and reservoirs in the south, mostly Algarve, how can they still be at 8%?
It's also raining a bit in the Algarve, although obviously not as much as here in the north.
Yeah.
But like he was saying, that we are not getting that late summer that we got last year, but on an Earth perspective, that actually is a pretty good thing, because water reservoirs and water sheets and so on. So getting those back up, and also on the weather commentary. I definitely think that's one of the big positives of Portugal. We have pretty decent and mild weather, and these kinds of events are not very drastic, and they are not very common either. So we don't really have hurricanes and earthquakes, and we pretty much are free of natural disasters in general.
Yeah, yeah, you're well said. Long may that continue.
Mm.
Touching wood. Yeah, I mean we are known for the occasional earthquake, but they're not a regular occurrence, thankfully, as you might feel them certainly in California, for example. Yeah, so I think it's for those people. You know, there are people who will complain about everything, including the Portuguese weather. And some people might say, as a criticism of Portuguese weather, well, it's always sunny and mild here and nice. There's no sort of punctuation or seasons. Well, you've got it now. For those of you who say that, you've got your rain and your wind now, and you've got a little bit of contrast. My wells are nearly full at last, and the vegetable patch is loving it, says Pete. And Michael, going back to the GNR, considering the GNR have to buy their own guns, why in a country as safe as Portugal? Why do they even need them? The British police have way worse crime, and a Bobby's truncheon seems to work pretty well. I'll let others answer that. I'm not sure. You're right about the rain, Antonio F. It can be annoying and in some cases dangerous, but vital. I wish it would rain all winter, but just between 1 in the morning and 6 in the morning. That's a good arrangement.
Would be great, right?
It'd be really excellent. The British Armed Police units went on strike not so long ago after one of them was prosecuted for a shooting. I feel so much safer in Portugal, says Pete. Thank you for that. And true story then from John. My 102-year-old mother, who, mind you, is blind and 90% deaf, was given a vision in which she saw a rather specific message written on the ceiling. This is incredible. Saying that all her children would come to visit her the first week of October. My 2 brothers and sister and I all decided to take this at face value, and we all had a wonderfully meaningful visit 3 weeks ago. This November the 1st, All Souls Day, my mum went home. Yes, she passed away, John, as you shared with us. I'm forever grateful God chose such a clever way to arrange her final days. Quite extraordinary, because, of course, All Saints, All Souls Day is meant to be the thinnest time, isn't it, between the veils of life and death? And I wanted to ask you about this. Thank you for sharing that, Joël de Nord. Halloween, it's a Venn diagram, isn't it? The foreigners with their trick-or-treating Halloween, and the Portuguese.
I love Halloween, so I'm suspicious to ask about that, but it's definitely not a very strong Portuguese tradition, although there are things in Portugal, so like the trick-or-treating, and the center region, namely in Coimbra, that it's something called Bolinhos e Bolinhos, that it's a song that they go singing door to door, asking for bolinho, so that it was a specific kind of sweet. And so it does exist, and I would say that it comes from the remaining of the more pagan / Celtic roots in Portugal that didn't manage to get completely snuffed out by the Christian church and so on.
Well, often with these situations, the church very cleverly just kind of borrows it, doesn't it, or co-opts that tradition. And
yes, definitely. The Christian church was particularly clever doing that, and most of the Christian holidays actually come from pagan holidays.
Yeah, right. And that's true of the All Saints as well, isn't it? All Souls, because the Pau de Deus is one of those bolos or bolinhos, isn't it, that is given to the kids and to the poor at this time of year on the 1st of November. So you're a big. What is it you like about Halloween?
Oh, I actually like more of the pagan side of things. I just find it extremely interesting, the whole lore and the whole mythology around it. The cleaning of the veil and people getting masks so they are not taken by demons. So demons think they are one of them and so on. I think that's pretty cool.
Sounds like you had an interesting. All Saints Day on the 1st of November, a public holiday here. A lot of people just get glad for the rest, don't they, to have a day off? But I guess for others, there is a significance, whether they are observing it from a pagan point of view.
The more traditional thing here in Portugal is actually to go and visit the cemeteries and the ones that have passed in the family. And that was actually the reason we were going to Caldas, because my great-grandmother and great-grandfather are buried there. And my mother wanted to go to the grave, but we are postponing that due to the storm.
And without wanting to be too sort of morbid or nosy about this, us foreigners do see this happening. I mean, many Sundays families are observing the loved ones who've passed and going to the cemetery. But there's a special significance there on the 1st of November, and of course the people selling flowers and so on are outside the cemeteries. Is that basically what happens? People will go and spend time in the cemetery?
Yeah, it's basically an honoring the dead tradition and remembering the past family members. So it's common that they just go and clean the graves and offer some flowers and so on. So yes, that's a pretty strong traditional for the 1st of November, so the All Souls Day.
Okay, and if I know the Portuguese, there will be some food and drink involved. So once you've been to the cemetery, do you go and have a favourite meal of the dearly departed?
Well, that's actually not a big thing, but I think most people don't mind that at all.
I'm sure. By point of order, Chair, for Michael Whitby, no policeman in Portugal buys his own service gun. She can buy one for private use, but not for service. And they have to buy their own uniform. However, they receive a small monthly allowance for that. Notoriously poorly paid, I think, the GNR. And thank you for clearing that up, Michael.
General public service problem, but yeah.
Yes, right. I was listening to a podcast with obvious wrong information. The question of why they need a gun anyway still stands. I know it's a carryover from pre-Republic. It's in the name, isn't it? They are the National Guard of the Republic. They're not the guardians of the people necessarily. They're the guardians of the Republic, which puts it in a different way. I love newspaper reports on how many trees are down and someone being brushed by a car here compared to murders and stabbings back home in the smoke. Absolutely. It's all relative, isn't it? And reassuring to somebody like Pete, who's from a much more volatile environment. Laura P, good morning to you. I had a wonderful bacalhau con castanhas. So the cod with chestnuts, one of the many thousands of ways of cooking bacalhau. This time with chestnuts in Braga and a lot of sweet onions. Really good. Stop it, Laura P. That sounds lovely and is making me feel hungry. 2 years ago, we walked the beaches here in 20-degree plus weather, shorts and T-shirts. As in 2 years ago in November. Is that right, Michael? We can get that late summer, the Verão de San Martinho. The guns used by police forces are 9mm. 9mm. Says Antonio F, are forbidden for civilians except if they are sport shooters. You learn something every day here on the Good Morning Portugal show. Bobby O'Reilly will be with us and teaching us even more in just a moment about his processes.
That actually reminds me of a funny story. The only funny story I had with police. But
have you got lots of stories, but only one of them is funny?
My father's farm is, in a village, a very traditional village.
Right.
And it was Halloween, and I did a Halloween party at the house. So everyone came in costumes, and most of my friends, they really like costumes and, dressing in black and so on and so forth. So someone decided to call the police, thinking that we were invading the property and stealing and so on. So we were just cooking lunch, having our bolognese, and we start seeing policemen coming in with like tactical things with the gun and so on. And I'm just
they had their guns. They had their guns drawn.
Yeah,
really?
And I'm just looking at it like, what the hell?
Or like nice uniform.
And they come in and say, "Hello, good afternoon. What is going on here?" When I'm like, "Well, we're having lunch."
Wow.
And he's like, is any of you owner of this house? Well, yes, I'm the daughter of the owner of this house.
Yeah.
And they were like, I don't remember how the conversation goes, but he pretty much just face palmed and
Well, it's
They
a good
asked,
job.
they
It's a good job.
apologized and went back their way. But
Well, I'm glad it ended so safely. I mean, you could have thought they were joining your party dressed up as police officers, and you could have started, maybe thinking they were stripograms or anything could have happened. Dressed up as police officers. That's
yeah,
yeah.
it was real guns. It was easy to tell, but that's one of the big differences
What from the holes in the
between
wall, right?
the America and Portugal. None of us was really scared. We were just like, what the hell?
Yes, it does.
And yes, we weren't really, none of us even considered being shot. People, the policemen here are not very trigger happy, and there
Yeah.
is very big consequences for accidental shooting and so on. It's actually even harder for them to shoot, even in valid situations, than it
Yeah.
should be.
So perhaps it's used as a deterrent. To answer Michael's earlier question, it's more of a deterrent and a symbol, isn't it, of force and authority. And those young Portuguese in the story Anna just told were not especially frightened, but a good bit of policing by the sound of it. People dressed in black in a property. A neighbour reports it. The police deal with it, and all well and good. Did they join you for dinner or not?
No, they just went back, but it was a very curious development.
Well, did you hear about that story of the guy in Lisbon who ordered? He thought he was ordering pomegranate juice, and using a language app and not having a great grasp of Portuguese, people thought he was talking about a grenade. They called like pomegranate, granada, grenade. And then next thing he knew, he was wrestled to the floor by armed police officers, thinking that this had escalated. And all this was him trying to order a pomegranate juice, and he found himself locked up in quite a state of shock, I think.
But yeah, I think that's definitely a language thing, because he
Yeah.
wasn't able to explain what's going on. He was probably scared that the police came over.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think reaction is an important thing. I think police also, in that case, didn't understood pretty quickly that we weren't invading anything,
Yes.
because we were pretty relaxed and weren't, frightened and so on. So, but I can understand that, especially a foreigner in that situation probably would be frightened, especially if you come from a background like America.
Well, I think he was an Azerbaijani, and if he just kept shouting out "grenade," presumably that didn't help. Thinking he was ordering a pomegranate juice and couldn't understand why a delicious juice wasn't being produced and why suddenly he was surrounded by a ring of armed GNR officers.
Mm-hmm.
Right, it's 9:32. Let's get Bobby O'Reilly on the screen with us as well this morning. Are you going to stick around and chat with us, Anna?
Sure.
Excellent. We've got a barefoot broadcast at 10 o'clock with Mrs. M. And here he is, Mr. Bobby O'Reilly. Hello, mate. How are you?
Good. Yourself?
Very well. Yeah, looking forward to hanging out with you this weekend. Here we are on the screen, Englishman, Irishman, and Portuguese woman. We will be having Englishman, Irishman, and Portuguese man tomorrow afternoon, 3 o'clock at the Storytellers. All welcome to come and be extras in that production as we talk to Marco Aresh of the Storytellers Palace. Looking forward to it, Bobby?
Absolutely. Yeah, I had a checking out the place yesterday. Looks really cool. So,
yeah.
Although I'm not looking forward to the weather forecast, as Anna was saying earlier on, it sounds a bit blustery up there, no?
I hope it will come across as dramatic and moody. And maybe we can get some film of us, if not swimming, then running along the beach.
Because you should extend the Halloween theme.
We could do, couldn't we? I mean, yeah. If we strip down to our trunks, that will certainly terrify people in a Halloweeny kind of way. That should do it. Yeah. But you've got a signature thing now, which you've been doing. I think I'll play a little clip from the Aroera filming. But you like to do a little dance on the beach holding a cocktail, don't you?
Yeah, when I'm drunk, yeah.
Right, okay. So hopefully did we manage to capture that for Tamar? I don't think we did we?
No, we didn't. I had to run away.
Yes.
I remember being beaten by New Zealand the same weekend, so...
Well, we haven't seen you since then, have we? I don't think we've talked about it on screen since then. Do you think South Africa deserved to take the title this year?
Absolutely, to be honest.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
They were the best team of the tournament, I think.
Yeah.
Even though I know Ireland had beaten them in the if you like, in the group stage, but we could have easily lost that game as well as won it. So, but no, we could say the same. But typically in rugby, the best team always wins at the end of it.
Yeah.
Really. So yeah.
So well done.
Deserve it. And how do you say? I was happy to see them win it again. Like it meant so much to like it does to every nation. But South Africa, given its history and its unification, etc., and I think it means so much to South African people. So for that reason, I was delighted that South Africa had won it.
And I'm sure your South African neighbour, who I met when we were in your neighbourhood, was delighted, or it remains delighted by that as well. Anna, from your Portuguese perspective, obviously Bobby's a big rugby fan. Quite a few of the foreigners, immigrants, expats are rugby fans. They bring that passion with them. It was a good moment for Portuguese rugby. Did that get through to you and Portuguese friends and family?
I confess it completely passed me, but I'm not someone that actively looks for sport news. But I knew that some time ago, like a few years ago, there was a huge celebration when the Portuguese hockey team won, rugby team. And that one definitely spread, but no, this time it didn't reach me.
Well, the expression that was being used, I think, Bobby, was they gave a very good account of themselves in this tournament, didn't they? They did really well.
By far, no, they surpassed themselves. Actually, of all the commentary that you see on all the different chats about the rugby and so on, and it's across the world, the main team, I think, Fiji and also then Portugal. I think everyone said Portugal was the one that surprised the most.
Yeah, and
it started a big conversation about the tier 1, tier 2 type system that they have to bring on the teams that are, let's say, less don't get as many top games as possible. So hopefully that conversation continues and Portugal gets to play a lot of the what we'd say tier 1 teams now, because they really surpassed themselves. We had a conversation prior to the World Cup, and we were saying if they get a try, that'd be an amazing thing.
Yeah.
But beat Fiji, you know what I mean?
Yeah, superb.
It was just unbelievable. I was actually in the airport for the homecoming, and the Portuguese team coming home, and it was just bananas. And like I said to you, everyone there knew each other, so it's a family here. The rugby world is a family. It's a big family. Everyone was shaking hands, everyone was hugging, and it wasn't like the soccer where they were all just sort of getting all caught up emotionally because they're all wearing the same jersey. They actually knew each other, and it was very, very endearing to see it. And it will definitely grow because it's in their, how would you say, it's in their bones, and you can see the passion that they have for it. And I think it's going to grow. Rugby in Ireland years and years ago, I would say in the 80s, when Ireland started won their first triple crown that I remember, no one really watched rugby up to then, because we all watched Irish football and then of course English soccer, if you like. But then the rugby grew and grew and grew and grew and grew, and now I think actually outside the Irish traditional games, I think it surpasses the soccer, the football, the international football, as the number 1 sport to watch as international. Yeah. I think the same. It'll grow here.
It seems like
I actually think it's a shame that basically no sports other than football get much media attention here in Portugal. It's pretty much all football, and everything just gets under the bridge. And it actually gets very little investment, and that's definitely something I think it should change. There should be more media and more attention to other sports than football.
Yeah, well said. I mean, I watched the one of the Portuguese games at the Caldas Rainhas rugby ground. It's an amazing ground. I think it's an athletics track as well, a multi-purpose. And that's often what happens here in Portugal, isn't it? A club, a football club or a rugby club will have other sports based from the same ground. But I think they weren't complaining about it, but they were saying we're not very well funded publicly, and they have to do a lot of their own.
They are very little funded, and most players cannot do that professionally. They need to have side jobs and so on.
Yes, yeah, interesting. And some of the rugby squad, they weren't all professionals, were they, by any means?
No, but I think after that World Cup, they'll all have new homes to go to.
Yes,
yeah, that's
interesting, isn't it? For the rugby squad, their lives will have been changed forever, won't they?
And their families. And I think actually rugby in Portugal has been changed irreversibly for the good from that World Cup, and I look forward to the next one. And I think people will be watching to see what happens to them. They're the Japan of this World Cup. Japan in the last World Cup got into the semi-final by beating Ireland in the quarter-final of the last World Cup. So like they were like the big surprise. Now Japan fell back, but so everyone's going to be watching to see where did they go from here.
Yep, very good.
It's very hard to stay on the top all the time, as most of the teams find out. Like because your squad is constantly turning over, and it's to keep that consistency in that team. Everyone's watching Portugal for the next World Cup and see how they progress over the next couple of years. But hopefully they'll build on it.
And is it the same with the Football World Cup? Is it in 4 years' time? Is that how it works? It's on that cycle, is it? Okay, all right. Well, it's going to be very exciting going into that next tournament, that next global tournament. Fantastic. I'm going to play the video from our last, well, not our last filming, because that was in Tamar. We were in Aroeira, or near Aroeira, on the Costa de Caparica. Fontatelia, where much of this was filmed. I'll just show a minute of this, and this is what we're looking forward to this weekend. Here in San Martino de Porto. We'll hope to catch Bobby twirling with a cocktail on the beach. It'll be very different weather. And then we'll get into the serious discussion of is residency through investment alive and well in Portugal. But for a moment, let's just enjoy this moment again, Bobby. It was so different, wasn't it? Different times, certainly featuring me and Bobby and stars here in Portugal, people who share our love of this country and its culture, talking to us about it tomorrow. Marco, what an incredible history he has as a filmmaker, director, worked with some of the biggest firms here in Portugal and around the world, and now the owner of the Storytellers Palace, another hotel in Sintra as well. And I think he's got other plans up north as well. So it's going to be very interesting talking to him. And like you, Bobby, he grew up in hospitality. He was a baby in kitchens, he said, and it's just in his blood, cooking, right? So he's going to be cooking for us tomorrow as well. Fantastic.
I was watching his interview with you the other day, and I was like, wow, this guy is so interesting. He's got such a sort of a story to tell that got him to where he is. So I think it's going to be a very good conversation that we'll be having with him tomorrow.
Yeah,
it'll be great.
Our own director, a filmmaker, documentary man is Andy Klein. That video made me smile, warm and fuzzies. I got the warm and fuzzies from that as well. And the lovely sunset on Fontatelia Beach there. So we'll have more of that this weekend. Portugal, says Antonio F, is very good in roller rink hockey. Look at that. Another underestimated sport then, or underrepresented, having won many world championships. We are also good in canoeing, won medals in other sports like judo. Lots of investment in the last decades. Good to hear that. Thank you, Antonio F. So is residency through investment alive and well? If I may, before you answer that question, Bobby, and I'm sure you'll have something to say on that as well, Anna, there are a few stories in the in the media at the moment. And I was thinking to myself, what is the soundbite about these soundbites? And I would say headlines that don't help, right? House prices up 48% in 4 years. This is from the Portugal News. I guess in some ways you could see that as a good thing, especially for those people who are selling those houses. But are these things a little bit misleading? Bobby, what do you make of headlines of this?
If you actually get the statistics off of the government websites, so basically they release them, or even if you look at the JLL residential, they have these reports that they release quarterly and so on and so forth. They give the price per square meter, per average across different zones and so on and so forth. And you can pick numbers from any point in time in any particular place to create any narrative anytime you want.
Yes, well said.
It's like someone said to me one day, like 75% of all statistics are made up on the spot. You know, so
As
it's a bit
as
like
that.
that, to be honest with you. So the thing is that house prices are rising and falling. They're doing both. It depends on what it is and where it is. As I said to you already, on the lower end of the market, because of the mortgage interest rates, etc., the apartments in the cheaper areas are actually falling. People are having to sell because they can't afford their mortgages, and they're selling them basically more than what they paid from the clear the mortgage, but cheaper than what their value would have been, say, before they had stopped certain programs and certain things that were going on. But the real issue here, right across the board, is supply over demand. That's it. That's it in a nutshell. The corrections that they're trying to do with inflation and basically hammering the lower man with regards to interest rates, because they're the ones that's going to suffer. The guy who's at the top of the end of the market, if it goes up 1 or 2 points, whatever, he mightn't like it, but it's not going to hurt him. Where it really hurts people is when they get their mortgage, they get a mortgage that they can basically, how much can I get? And they get the amount they can get based on the lowest possible denominator with regarding what I'm going to have to pay. And then they're given a choice whether to go variable rate or fixed rate. Variable rate is typically cheaper over a fixed rate. So people will go for the cheaper and take the chance. Going to go for a fixed rate. And then, of course, if the interest rates change, their mortgage can practically double over a very short period of time, which has happened. So, as I said to you on the last time we were talking, if we look at even on the South Bank here at the moment, in the, say, high densely populated area where you had large apartment blocks, people are selling their homes for 90,000 to 100,000 euros, talking about 1 and 2 bedroom apartments. If you go back 6 months ago, 8 months ago, you would, well, there wouldn't have been that many for sale, but now there's a lot for sale. But what's even more, I suppose, worrying for them is that they're being sold very, very fast, because people know that prices will continue to increase on all levels of the market, especially in the high density populated areas, because there is just no supply. And if there's no one buying, if they're selling to rent, then there's somebody buying to be the landlord to rent to them. And basically it's going to come back to a more of a rent controlled, or let's say landlord will keep putting up the rents as they have happened. Rents have gone up, I think, dramatically more so than even house prices have over the last couple of years, because of, again, supply and demand. And it always comes back to me from the timing that there's not enough planning. There's not enough planning advisors. There's not enough planning coming out of the municipalities with regards to the type of housing that people should be building, guidance on the volumes and sizes and so on. So I think the big discussion needs to happen around the need and need going forward over the next 10, 15, 20 years, because this is going to continue for the next 10, 15, 20 years if they don't fix it.
Yeah. Thank you, Bobby, for your analysis on that. Another headline, record-breaking rent prices in Southern Europe. From what you're saying, that would appear to be true. That's where the impact is felt. This is where you help people, of course, Anna. And that's, I mean, we're seeing it's a European phenomenon, isn't it? Well, it's a global phenomenon, the way it works, supply and demand. According to the most recent data from Idealista, the highest house rents were observed in Milan, Lisbon, and Barcelona. Looks like Portugal, certainly in Lisbon, is in good company there in a sense, with these great cities around the world, but not great for if you want to rent. What do you have to say about what Bobby's just said there, Anna?
I agree with Bobby in the rent problem, especially, is getting worse, and this slight break in the market, which is not a big break or a long-term break, like he was saying. It's probably going to make the problem worse when it comes to rents, because it's going to become a lot more. The big companies and the people that have the money to buy them will put them on the market at much higher prices when it comes to rent and so on. So the affordable housing won't really be available. Of course, some people will be able to buy, but it's probably not going to be a majority given the current loan scenario. I do not agree with the comment on the statistics and so on. I think they do have accurate data, and the prices have definitely been increasing dramatically. And the 50% increase over 4 years, it's not surprising, and I think it's probably pretty accurate.
I think your point, Bobby, was how these things are spun, right? You're not necessarily doubting the statistics in themselves. It's just how they're cherry picked to create a certain sort of picture.
Exactly. I agree that house prices have gone up and continue to go up. But there's a couple of reasons why they've gone up. And it's not just because, and this is where the narrative comes in, the foreigners are coming in and buying up all the houses. That's not the truth. The reason they've gone up is, if you look, you have to go back prior COVID, and you have to look at, number one, the tax take that the government takes from every house sold. And I'm talking about the EVA. So if you look at, no matter what business you have, whether you're making furniture or when you're building your furniture, everything you buy, materials you buy, the EVA is write-offable. In other words, it's you pay EVA and you buy something, you pay EVA on that, and then you do your EVA returns. It's bound to basically what you paid versus what you owe. As a construction company and in construction, every material you buy, and even the EVA that you pay, the sales, etc., none of it is write-offable. It's all cost. So that basically means that the government has put 23% higher the price of every property, new property built, automatically, because it's a cost.
Yeah.
And if you look at, then you pay 6% on your IMT tax, and if you look at the taxes that the actual people who are working on them are paying and so on and so forth, like the taxes that are taken off of a new sale, I think we got calculated up, it's nearly like something like 41% is what the cost, there is, between the material cost and the tax cost and so on. So it's about 41% of the cost of a building a new property. So that's the first part of it. The second part of it is the cost of materials have gone up an awful lot as well in the last couple of years, and land prices have gone up extensively. Now, land prices, when you're buying land now, you have to say, okay, it's going to take me 3 to 4 years to get planning on these properties, unless it already has planning. And the market can change vigorously over that period of time. And we even heard stories, for example, in Granada, where, down in Comporta, Malige, where people have bought land with PIP and then told by Grandola that, sorry, no, we're not allowed you to build anything there anymore. This after they spent 10 or 15 or 20 million on land to build. Right. Just that, no, they've decided, no, we're not going to build. So the thing is, the control over what and where they can build for sure should happen. But the speed and how it comes out needs to change dramatically. You have a huge shortfall of properties in high density populated areas, and that's why the prices are where they're at. And that's the long and short of it, really. You can look at the prices of the construction, and it's the same everywhere. Prices of land, I think people started to get sort of a little bit crazy. They see that there are people buying land, and all of a sudden they double the price and triple the price and so on. And people are paying it as well for land. So that all contributes to house prices rising. So I'm not saying house prices are not going up. They're definitely going up. But the reason for it is nothing to do with the volume of foreigners that come into the country. The reason to do it is there's just not enough planning coming out to fulfill the need that's required. There's no stimulus for people to build a type of property or a type of house or a type of standard. There's no stimulus for people to actually buy a house of a type of a standard throughout the country, such as tax credits, etc., and so on. Now, they have brought out some stimulus with regards to if you have 2 properties, if you sell one now, as it was a second property, you can use the profit that you made to pay off your mortgage on your initial house, and you don't get taxed.
Yeah.
That's very weak, to be honest with you. It's a very weak reason. It's trying to tell me to sell the property that I have, that I'm renting out. Rents are going up. so I can pay off my mortgage and not pay a tax on it. But then I've got low, excess income. What to do with it? I invest in something else. So I think that they have to get that part right first. But house prices are going to continue, and rents are going to continue going up here. Sure.
That's
But
the
I
reality.
definitely agree with you when it comes to construction. There is a lack of support on construction and probably an overtax. On the high density areas, you also have the ARU areas, so the urban rehabilitation areas that do have some relevant tax incentives. One of them being to reduce the VAT from 2026, which is nice, but it's not enough. I agree with you. And it's very, very, very hard to be a developer in Portugal. Things are very slow. It's a pain to deal with townhouses. Like you say, they change their mind, like they change their underwear, and we have absolutely no control and no say in it. And it's just not an attractive environment to invest in. And that should change, because that's going to make the problem a whole lot worse.
It's what makes it attractive to invest in. It's why it's attractive to invest in, because of the supply versus the demand. So
it is, but all the rest is very bad.
we're going to continue to buy land and buy properties and so on and so forth, because we know that they're not going to fix it anytime soon, and that there's always going to be a demand on property, and there's always going to be a demand, whether it be rental or whether it be a demand on people looking to buy, to live in, or move out of Lisbon into more commutable areas, etc. So yeah, it's very attractive to invest in.
Yeah, there's demand, and it can be definitely a very good and profitable investment, but it's going to be a very slow and a very bureaucratic investment, and that definitely puts off a lot of people. And it's something that when you invest that kind of thing, you can definitely have great profits, but you should be ready for it to take a very long time for you to get those profits.
All right, but I need to ask both of you what you're doing specifically for your clients, because we're going to answer this question. Is residency through investment alive and well in Portugal? It would appear to be so from Mr. O'Reilly. What do you do with all that we've talked about this morning? And thank you, T-Duck, for your comment. Great discussion today. And from Laura P., what do you say of lots and lots of Portuguese blaming us foreigners, ruining the housing market? No one talks about the Portuguese owner that are most double or triple the price only to foreigners. And the result of that is making me feel unwanted in a sense. That's horrible when that's happening, when we've got the foreigners being blamed unfairly, unnecessarily. Bobby, you don't pay taxes on profits on a house sale if you invest all that amount in buying another property in the next 18 months. That's a good incentive, isn't it?
That's your home. That's your home, not a property. It has to be
not
your
for
home.
Investment purposes.
Not for investment. Right. Investment, you're caught regardless, unless you're now selling. If you have two properties, one is let's say an investment property. If you sell it and the capital gains that you would normally pay in it, and you use that to pay off an existing credit that you have on your own home, your first home, you don't pay tax on it. But if you're selling your own home to move it into another home, then you don't pay. And again, it depends on the price of the property as well. There's a little bit of calculations required in all of them. So
but it's better for the individual rather than the developer.
It's for reinvestment in habitational property, and it's only for your own habitation, so in your own housing.
Okay, Anna, so what are you doing? Given all that we've talked about, what are you going to do for your clients at Cat Realty? I'll ask you the same question in just a moment, Bobby.
First of all, I would just like to have a comment on, I think it was Laura's comment.
Yep.
And I think this is very much a government, something that the government is spewing, so to say. So the whole the foreigners are the problem has been the government narrative, and I think it's a very bad narrative and a very prejudicial narrative for Portugal even, because that's a very small part of the problem, and the foreigners in general have been the ones investing the most in Portugal. And basically what they have been doing is that they are pushing away the ones that are investing and supporting the economy. And overall, if this keeps happening, the ones who will be paying will be the Portuguese people, because that money has to be coming from somewhere. So
Thank you.
overall, I think this is a terrible narrative, and it's just a political scheme to try and stay with power with the whole I'm trying to defend the people narrative. That's pretty much what this government is doing. And they're not. They're not. They are making it worse on the long term. And I'm very worried about that. Overall, for the clients, it's like Bobby was saying. I think that Portugal can definitely still be a very attractive when it comes to investment and development, because there is a lack of housing and there is more demand than supply, and that's probably not going to change anytime soon. But if you want to invest in Portugal, do keep in mind that things are going to be slow. So like Bobby was saying, just to get licensed, it's going to be taking between 1.5 to 4 years, and then the development and so on. So it takes a while to get your investment back, but you can definitely have a good return on it. But be ready for it to be slow.
Thank you for that, Anna. I need to go because Mrs. M here is for the Barefoot broadcast, but we need to ask you that question as well, Bobby. What are you doing for your clients to Mrs. M? There she is. Residency through investment. Is it alive and well in Portugal, Bobby, despite all of these headlines? I've been criticizing the sound bites, and now I'm asking you for one.
Yeah, no, to be honest with you, for me, it's an advantage. Because, as I said, most of my people are investors. Most of my clients are investors, and always have been investors. And I would say the majority of the people who I deal with don't particularly want to move and live in Portugal because they're from different parts of the world. Some do, and because they see the benefits, and maybe as a plan B, maybe they might do later on. But the initial reason that people are investing with me is for a residency by investment. And then what I do is investments. It's investments. The fact that they can get a residency beside that is sort of a bonus and a benefit to them. So for me, the fact that the houses still continue to grow and prices are still continuing to grow, when I'm selling properties to investors off plan, they know by the time that it's finished, it's typically gone up 30% over that period of time. And if they're putting in 30% as their initial booking deposit, they've doubled their equity in a 3-year period. So, and at the same time, to get a residence. So for me, it's a big advantage, the fact that the government, in two ways. One, it's a disadvantage because I'm a developer, but in the second way, it's a big advantage because I can show investors how they can make money and at the same time get the residency. Simple.
Superb. Excellent stuff. You thought you'd escape the dad jokes. No way. I'm going to do those very quickly now. And also just tell you that a Magusto festival event is happening on the 4th tomorrow. Thank you, Randy, for that. Excellent stuff. More on the Gumper map, which you can find via our website. Let's just move that out of the way and share the dad jokes with you as we wish you a bon fin semana. This might be you this weekend, Bobby, and me. I pointed to two old drunks sitting across the bar and told my wife, that's us in 10 years. She said, that's a mirror, you idiot. They said, that might be us in the Gatsby tomorrow night. They said not to try this at home, so I'm coming over to your house. Very good. And if you're not using social media to spout your uninformed opinion, then you're totally missing the point of the internet. Yes, well said. What else is it for? Thank you, Anna, for being here today. Savvycat Anna at savvycatrealty.com. And from your home group, Bobby O'Reilly. See you this weekend. We're going to have some fun in San Martino de Porto. Bon fin de semana, everybody. Ciao, ciao. Good there. See you, everybody. Bye for now.